Okay, so you've brought us some excerpts from Hemingway, right? A Farewell to Arms.
Yeah.
And we're going to take a look at the American ambulance driver and what he sees in World War I with the Italian army. Yeah.
Yeah, these excerpts kind of place you right there on the ground, in the midst of this global conflict. And it's fascinating to see how Hemingway handles the emotional and psychological aspects of war.
Okay, so let's start right at the beginning.
Hmm.
We have the narrator returning to the front, and there's this really stark contrast between, like, I guess, nature and the war,
Right.
right? There are guns and new hospitals, even some British soldiers around, shell-damaged houses.
Right.
But at the same time, it's spring. There are green fields and new leaves, like life just keeps going.
Yeah.
How do we interpret that juxtaposition?
I think Hemingway is really highlighting the absurdity of war in a way.
Yeah.
You have nature, which is constantly renewing itself, this sort of eternal cycle.
Right, right.
But war is this destructive force that disrupts everything. It's this jarring contrast that makes you question the point of it all. And he does that with a lot of the imagery and symbolism throughout these excerpts.
And then we get this scene at the mess. The wine from a grass-covered flask being passed around. It's such a small detail, but it speaks to their camaraderie, their bond in this crazy situation. And then there's the young priest with his red velvet cross, a symbol of faith, I guess, in the middle of all this.
Yeah.
But then there's the captain, speaking pidgin Italian, first teasing the priest, and then suddenly suggesting they go to a whorehouse.
Yeah.
It's so jarring.
It really is. And I think it speaks to this kind of moral ambiguity that war creates.
Yeah.
These men are facing death every day, so traditional values and morals maybe don't hold the same weight anymore. It makes you wonder how anyone maintains a sense of right and wrong in such a situation.
And then after that encounter, the narrator talks about his longing for Abruzzi. He describes it with such detail, the frozen roads, the dry snow, the good hunting. It's such a contrast to the smoke of cafes and the drunken nights at the front. It seems like he's desperately yearning for this simpler, peaceful time.
Yeah, Abruzzi represents this kind of lost innocence for him, this place untouched by war. It's almost like a dream he clings to, a vision of what he wants to return to, if that's even possible.
And this ties into his reflections on night and day, right? He says he prefers the night, except when the day is very clean and cold. It seems like even the way he experiences time is affected by the war.
It's like he's seeking refuge in darkness, a way to escape the constant reminders of the war. It's only when the day itself feels pure and untouched that he can find some solace. It's a really interesting psychological insight, isn't it?
Absolutely. And then we have Catherine Barkley entering the picture. Their initial interactions are marked by this shared grief, and it's so poignant. Catherine's laughter is a first for the narrator, which is pretty telling. And then there's this awkward but somehow intense kiss. It feels like they're two souls connecting in this broken world.
Yeah, I mean, they're both wounded in a way, aren't they? And they find this instant connection, this shared understanding of loss.
Yeah.
The laughter, I think, is so significant because it shows a spark of joy breaking through the sadness. And the kiss, as awkward as it is, highlights that raw need for human connection.
There's a conversation where Catherine asks the narrator not to pretend to love her, and then he tells her he does, very plainly and honestly. It's such a raw moment, stripped of any pretense. And then she admits that it's only a little sometimes when he asks if she's happy.
Yeah, it's incredibly vulnerable. They're both laying their emotions bare, which is really risky. But in a way, it makes sense. In a war zone, there's no time for games or facades. They need honesty, even if it hurts.
Absolutely. And then there's that scene where the narrator holds Catherine. We feel her heartbeat, her lips opening, and then she cries on his shoulder. It's a moment of profound intimacy and connection, really showing how their relationship is developing.
It's like amidst all the death and destruction, they find solace and comfort in each other's arms. It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, human connection can still flourish. It's a really powerful moment.
Shifting gears a bit, we encounter a wounded soldier who complains about the goddamn war. What's interesting is that he's from Pittsburgh,
Right.
recognizes the narrator as American, even though he's in an Italian uniform. It's a small detail, but it really emphasizes how this war is impacting people from all over.
It really expands the scope of the narrative, doesn't it? It reminds us that this isn't just an Italian story. It's a global conflict that's pulling people from all corners of the world into its web.
And then, of course, the narrator gets injured himself, a trench mortar shell. The description of the medical examination is so clinical, almost detached. But the mention of shock, dulling the pain, is a stark reminder of the trauma he's experiencing.
It's classic Hemingway, that kind of understated prose. He doesn't dwell on the emotions, but the details themselves convey the horror of the situation. You feel the narrator's pain even if it's not explicitly stated. And that detail about the shock, it highlights the body's way of coping with extreme trauma.
Then there's the journey to the hospital, with that unsettling image of blood dripping from a stretcher above. It's a constant reminder of the fragility of life, the ever-present threat of death.
Yeah, that image is haunting, isn't it? It's a reminder that for every soldier who makes it to the hospital, there are others who don't. It really underscores the brutal reality of war.
Yet, even in the hospital, there are moments of humor and camaraderie. The officers share stories, the English private soldier, the Czechoslovaks, the Hungarian corporal, the jockey, the traveling salesman. It seems like storytelling becomes a way to cope, to find some lightness amidst the darkness.
Exactly. These stories, they create a sense of shared experience, a way for them to connect and bond over something other than the horrors they're facing. The humor, even if it's dark or absurd, is a survival mechanism.
But underneath that humor, there's this underlying cynicism. We see it in the conversation about morale and the futility of one side stopping the fight. Pacini's sarcastic Eva l'esercito really captures that disillusionment.
It's like their initial patriotism, if they ever had any, has been completely eroded by the realities of war. They see the pointlessness of it all, the endless cycle of violence and death.
The orderly's kindness in the hospital stands out. He's genuinely concerned about the narrator's return to Abruzzi. Remembers details about his companion, about the trout streams and the flute, small things. It shows that even in the most impersonal environment, human connection can persist.
Yeah, it's a reminder that even amidst the chaos and suffering, small acts of kindness can make a difference. It speaks to the resilience of the human spirit, the ability to find compassion even in the darkest of times.
And then Rinaldi comes back. Their interaction is full of this crude but affectionate teasing about the narrator's relationship with Catherine, the English girl. It provides a nice contrast to the intensity of the romantic relationship.
Yeah, it's a reminder that friendship, too, can be a source of strength and support during wartime. Their banter is a way of maintaining some normalcy, a connection to their pre-war lives.
We also see Miss Van Kampen's suspicion of the narrator being with the Italians and his attempts to get wine from the nurses. It shows that even the hospital isn't completely removed from the outside world.
The hospital becomes a microcosm of society, doesn't it? You still have rules and regulations, prejudices, and power dynamics at play.
And throughout this section, the relationship between the narrator and Catherine deepens. We see these tender moments in the hospital room, reading, drinking Cinzano, just being together. Catherine openly expresses her love, and the narrator reciprocates. Those little nighttime rituals, the crackers and vermouth, those early mornings together, they create this intimate world for themselves.
It's like they've built this bubble of love and intimacy amidst the chaos and destruction. They're clinging to each other, finding solace and strength in their connection.
But there are concerns for the future. Ferguson warns about Catherine getting into trouble, and their conversation about marriage reveals their pragmatism. They want to be together, but they're also aware of the realities of their situation.
They're living in a world turned upside down, where the future is uncertain. Their decision to delay marriage reflects a focus on the present, on simply surviving and being together.
And then there's Catherine's fear of the rain and her premonitions of death. It's chilling, foreshadowing the tragedy to come. Her question, "I'm married to you, don't I make you a good wife?" is heartbreaking, a plea for reassurance in a world filled with uncertainty.
Her fear of the rain is almost like a symbol of her fear of the unknown, of the forces beyond their control. It highlights her vulnerability and her desperate need for security and love.
As we move on, the mood shifts. Cool nights in September, the leaves changing. It's as if nature itself is mirroring the deteriorating situation at the front.
It's a subtle but effective way of creating this sense of foreboding. The end of summer, the fading of life and warmth, parallels the growing despair and the sense that things are falling apart.
The news from the front confirms this. Heavy losses at San Gabriel and the Bainsitsa Plateau. Riots against the war in Italian cities. It paints a picture of a nation on the brink of collapse.
It's like the war is consuming everything, not just the soldiers on the front lines, but the entire fabric of society. The riots suggest a growing disillusionment with the war effort, a sense that the sacrifices are no longer worth it.
And the British major's assessment is chilling. The Allies are cooked, but no one wants to admit it.
His cynicism reflects a broader sense of hopelessness, a feeling that the war has become unwinnable, but that acknowledging defeat would be too devastating.
The narrator leaves Milan, and there are these poignant goodbyes at the hospital. the porter's wife crying. The meeting with Catherine at the wine shop, their walk through the misty city to the cathedral. It all feels heavy with the weight of what's to come.
It's like a final, fleeting moment of peace before they're separated again. The city itself, shrouded in mist, reflects the uncertainty and gloom that hangs over their future.
Even during this outing, there's a reminder of the war, the narrator buying a pistol at the armorer's shop.
It's like the conflict is inescapable, even in moments that might otherwise feel normal. It underscores the ever-present danger and the need for self-preservation.
They have a temporary escape at a hotel, a luxurious room that feels slightly illicit. They talk about their love, about sinfulness. There's a lightness to their banter that contrasts sharply with the darkness of their situation.
It's a brief respite, a moment where they can pretend that the world outside doesn't exist. Their conversation about sinfulness highlights their awareness of societal norms, but also their defiance of them. They're choosing to create their own morality, their own definition of love and happiness.
And then the retreat. Chaos, rain, the fear of the advancing Germans. It's a harrowing depiction of a collapsing front, a desperate scramble for survival.
The retreat really underscores the fragility of order and the brutality of war. Everything falls apart, and the soldiers are left to fend for themselves in the face of overwhelming chaos.
The narrator's encounter with the military police is brutal. He reacts violently and escapes into the river, a decisive act of desertion fueled by his disillusionment.
It's a turning point, a moment where he rejects the war entirely. His escape is both physical and symbolic. He's breaking free from the constraints of duty and obedience.
During his escape, he encounters civilians, a bartender offering help. It shows this breakdown of order, the mix of kindness and suspicion that emerges in such chaotic times.
It's a world where the lines are blurred, where traditional hierarchies are overturned. The bartender's kindness is a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there are still good people willing to help.
He rejoins Catherine, and there's Ferguson's anger and sadness, and then Catherine's very practical plan to flee to Switzerland. The imagery of the darkening light creates this sense of urgency, this unknown future they're heading towards.
It's a desperate gamble, but they have no other choice. They're fleeing not just the war, but the consequences of their actions, the social and legal repercussions of their choices.
The journey across the lake is tense and perilous rain, wind, the fear of being caught. They're completely reliant on the barman's help.
The lake becomes a symbolic barrier between their old life and their uncertain future. The dangerous crossing highlights their vulnerability and their determination to reach safety.
They make it to Switzerland, a moment of relief. The simple act of having breakfast feels almost surreal. But even in this neutral territory, they're not free. The Swiss officials are polite but firm, their passports are confiscated, and they face an uncertain future.
They've escaped the immediate threat of the war, but they're still living in its shadow. They're stateless, vulnerable, and dependent on the goodwill of strangers.
They settle into a hotel, and there are moments of peace, but the war news keeps intruding. They talk about the future, about having a child, getting married. Their longing for normalcy is so evident, but their circumstances make it seem almost impossible.
Their conversations about the future reveal their deep desire for a life beyond war, a chance to build something lasting and meaningful. But their hopes are constantly tempered by the reality of their situation.
And then comes the ultimate tragedy. Catherine's pregnancy reaches its term, the labor is difficult, and their son is stillborn. It's a devastating loss, the shattering of their hopes for a future together.
It's the final blow, the ultimate price they pay for the war, even though it happens far from the battlefields. It's a reminder that the war's impact extends far beyond the physical violence, that its scars run deep and can shatter even the most cherished dreams.
And it doesn't end there. Catherine weakens after the birth, and despite the medical interventions, she dies. The narrator's solitary walk back to the cafe in the rain is the final image, a stark depiction of his loss and isolation.
It's a heart-wrenching ending. The rain, which has been a recurring motif throughout the story, now takes on this added layer of sorrow, symbolizing the immense grief and loneliness the narrator is left with. He's survived the war, but he's lost everything that gave his life meaning.
So through these excerpts from A Farewell to Arms, we see the human cost of war. It's a story of love, loss, disillusionment, and the enduring power of the human spirit.
These passages offer a glimpse into a world turned upside down, where individuals struggle to find meaning and connection amidst chaos and destruction. It's a reminder of the fragility of life, the complexities of love, and the profound impact that war can have on both the individual and society.
It really makes you think about the relationship between individual stories and grand historical events. How do people find love and connection in the face of such overwhelming forces? And what does it mean to survive a war but lose everything that made life worth living? What a powerful and thought-provoking story. We hope you've gained some new insights from this deep dive into Hemingway's world.
It's a story that stays with you long after you finished reading it. It forces you to confront the difficult questions, to consider the human cost of conflict, and the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable loss.
And maybe, just maybe, it encourages us to cherish the moments of love and connection in our own lives, recognizing their fragility and preciousness in a world that can often feel chaotic and uncertain.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for bringing these excerpts to us, and thank you to everyone for joining us on this deep dive.
It was a pleasure.